patience. Well, welcome back to PSA after our summer break. Nice to have you all here. We have some new faces, so I hope you get a chance to meet them. Thinking of a story, I always like to start with a story, and there was a small town, and in the small town, there was a general store in the front, and there was an elderly man that sat there every day. He wasn't really the king of the town. He wasn't the mayor of the town, but he was maybe the greeter of the town. And so he was kind of the first person that many people met when they came to that town. And so a family drove up, and the father got out of the car, and he says to the guy, "We're thinking of moving here. What's this town like?" And he says, "Well," he says, what was the town like that you're moving from?" He goes, "Well, it was a tough town. It was a tough town. It was backbiting. People were always mad at each other." He said they were talking about each other, gossiping. It's just a kind of a horrible experience. He says, "I hate to tell you that you're going to find exactly the same thing in this town." The guy goes away disappointed. A couple of days later, another family drives up, and the father gets out of the car, and he says, "Thinking of moving to this town. Tell me what this town is like." And he says, "Well, tell me what the town was like where you're moving from." Because, "Oh, it was a nice town. We hate to leave it. Great friends, great people, everybody sharing, kind to each other. Best town you could ever live in." He goes, "Well, I think the good news is you're going to find exactly the same thing here." And I think that's what we always have to remember, is that wherever we go, whatever we do, we take ourselves with us, right? And our attitudes are going to be reflected in the people around us. And so we make that decision whether we're going to be the reflection of the town or whether we're going to be the one that changes that town. So it's nice to have you here. Let's get our speaker up here. Jason coaches and trains certified coaches, sales teams, and specialty consultants to be more adaptive, agile, and confident by practicing an adaptive communication style and mindset to enroll new clients with ease. He has spent 30 years developing his adaptive way of being, which has produced outlier results in business growth, fundraising, and mass media entertainment. His coaching and training programs focus on the mastery of adaptive conversations with strategic emphasis on emotional connection and supporting a confident buying choice. Please welcome Jason Jones.
So let me begin by sharing an experience that I had. A number of years ago, I was asked to MC a fundraiser. That's one of the things that I've done over my years is support nonprofits in raising money with creating a powerful enrolling ask of the audience instead of spending a lot of time and energy on getting doodads for people to bid on and to get half of the value of the doodad, but actually just really enroll people in what's possible and sell them on the story so that they make the contribution based upon their being emotionally moved by it. And while I was there, I was doing my thing, meeting the people, talking to different people, and I got introduced to the vice president of Bremer Bank. And I'm like, oh my God, right? I'm doing sales coaching at this time as well. I was doing the other thing on the side, and I'm like, this is a huge opportunity. This could be great. Okay, and this is the conversation going on in my head as after our introduction, he's like, "Hi," it's like, "Let me introduce you to the vice president." I'm like, "Wow, great, I'm Jason." And I'm talking to myself going, oh gosh, okay, what should I tell him? What should I say here? Okay, my elevator pitch. Right. I'm like, so he's like, "So what do you do?" I said, "Well, actually, I'm glad you asked." I said, "When I'm not doing this," I said, "I'm a sales coach and I help people become more adaptive and agile and confident in their sales conversations so they can convert with ease." And he's like, "Interesting." And I'm like, "Okay, all right, that was good. Now what?" Now what? And I was like, "Well, I don't want to just tell him, I don't want to just start talking about me. I don't want to just talk about like what I do. It doesn't seem right just talk about my program." And and the next thing I knew, I was standing by myself, talking to myself about what I should say to this guy who wandered off to the food table because the conversation didn't go anywhere. Now, the reality of business is that oftentimes our greatest opportunities don't come in a preset appointment that was set up for us to come in and do a formal presentation or just do our usual routine of whatever we do in a sales conversations. Oftentimes, our biggest opportunities happen in an elevator, in a moment, in a chance meeting, at a fundraiser, where you're in front of a decision maker and you have an opportunity to enroll him in what? In meeting, in a time to talk, a time to explore something. But without having a path to do that, without knowing, you might find yourself standing by yourself as they wander away, wondering what I should say. Or really worse than that would be if I were to like spew my whole resume of all the great things I've done and what I could do and what I could do for his team and go into pitch mode. Because we've all seen how people respond to pitch mode. When we just go into pitch mode, they're like, oh yes, I know, I'm a good prospect for you, and now you're pitching me, right? But there's no reason for this. So I want to be nice and politely step out of this. So today, I want to share with you what I have developed so that if I ever get in a room again with the vice president of Bremer Bank, I'm going to know exactly what to say, exactly where to take that conversation so that he can be enticed into, yeah, we should meet. Let's have a conversation about that. Terrific. Let's get out our phone calendars and put it on there so that we've got something going on and it turns into something tangible. And so today, that is what I'm here to share with you, is that tactical structure. And so today it's going to be very specific. It's going to be specific transition questions. And then there's going to be some things to think about on your end in terms of what strategic questions you have, what approach you have, so that they do become enticed without you making a pitch. So I don't use all these slides. So let me tell you a little bit about me. And I guess why you should even listen to me today, because everybody's got a program, everybody's got a plan, everybody's got something, right? So I've spent my career in a variety of different ways, but there's one through line to everything that I've done, and that is creating an emotional connection with people so that they're motivated to take an action. And I've done that in many different venues and really many different ways. The first way was in my media career that I spent 12 years doing, where I had a morning show in Duluth on an oldie station. And I made my morning show the #1 most listened to morning show in the market. So I had to enroll listeners, people that sampled the show and tuned in, into having a relationship with me and listening to me and making me part of their daily routine. I also had to enroll those listeners then in a fun and creative way that didn't sound like I was pitching them all the time, into taking an action, into calling economy garages when they needed a garage, into coming down to the barbecue when we were roasting hot dogs outside, or any number of our activities, to accept the invitations that we were making. But I didn't have the benefit of getting feedback. I was sitting in a room by myself with a microphone, having a conversation with myself, which is a little weird, but it was fun and it worked, and it developed this. And this started to really develop and translate in different ways. I then moved out of radio and I moved into business for myself, doing event production. And this is when I really started selling one-on-one and started bringing this to nonprofits to be able to enroll people into making contributions without getting something tangible in return, except for knowing the impact that they were making and how to create that enrolling conversation. And then as I moved into coaching, it really became about one-on-one sales, and how then in that one-on-one sale, do I actually enroll someone in something that's possible for themselves? And oftentimes when it comes to enrolling someone in coaching, if they're not being sponsored, if they're just paying for it themselves, they have to believe that they're actually going to be able to achieve it in order to make the purchase. It's about them believing in themselves, which is a whole different kind of sale than just the value proposition of what I'm selling. In the process of that, I introduced BNI to a 4-question series that invited people to think about their involvement in BNI that created outlier results in recruitment. And now BNI International uses my training videos for all of their training. in training people on how to enroll a guest into becoming a member of one of their chapters. So I've had a lot of success with the methods that I teach and the methods that I have included in adaptive conversations. And the reason is that my focus has not been on how to sell somebody. My focus is how to connect to another human being in a way that really matters to them and help them create clarity for themselves on what the challenge is, what their problem is, what they want to solve. Because I find when people discover what it is they really want to solve, then they start getting really motivated about the solution that's in front of them. And then connecting the dots between the problem and that solution also becomes a lot easier, making the conversion kind of the easiest part of the sale instead of the, here we go. So what do you think? Do you want to buy? Here's the price. Shall we do this? Right? It's all set up for that. So today we're going to talk about the beginning of that, and the beginning of that in those opportunities like I described before. So let me move us ahead to this. So first I want to just talk a little bit about, it's important, even though we're going to talk about a technique today, it's really important to talk about what is the context that we are selling in. What is the world that our buyers are in? Where are their heads and hearts at as we're going out to approach people and talk to them? And there's really 5 trends in today's economy. The first one is technology, right? So Google has done something to people in the sense that there's an expectation that if they ask a question, they're going to get the answer in the context that they're thinking about it. They're going to get the solution put in such a way that it relates to them and the way that they're thinking about it. The patience of figuring out what we're trying to share and how that relates to them has gone down to virtually nothing. Because if they don't see the connection right away, we're done. There's no more time. There's no time for that. People don't have the patience. And we can sit and bellyache all we want about, oh, how it is and how it is anymore, but that doesn't actually help us. That doesn't actually help us to be able to navigate powerfully and get the results and bring our valuable solutions to people like we know. Instead, it's for us to adapt, right? The other one is destabilization. And destabilization has created a level of skepticism that there hasn't been for really ages. You know, that way back in the olden days in the 90s and actually the 80s, right? Because the 90s is when the internet started. And in the olden days in the 80s, when we were a sales representative, we came as experts and we had a lot of expertise. And our buyers really relied on us to bring trends, to bring in like what's happening in whatever our area of solution is and knowledge around that, so that they can be educated and then make part of their educated guess on whether they buy or work with us or not based upon that education. Now, there is everyone has access to everything, and anybody with a web page can be a competitor and jump in the fray. There's no gatekeepers, there's no walls. So now you're competing with everybody in a full range of everything from huckster to accomplished professional, and they all look the same. The most credible folks look the same as the guy who just printed out a business card and said, I'm a coach, or I'm whatever, and I'm out selling this now. And so the skepticism of like, are the reviews even real? Like all of that is much greater. And so it's on us to be able to naturally and with ease develop trust in our conversations and our connections and our relationships that we have, and have that transition of trust be ever present, because that's the one thing that neutralizes the skepticism, is establishing that trust. We can't just rely on the authority of the brand anymore, or the authority of like that reliance, that luxury is really gone. The other thing is global reach, which I did speak about a little bit in the sense of the internet making it everything available all the time. Everybody has a reach out into the world, right? And to reach everybody. The disadvantage for us is that creates an incredible amount of noise. You know, when the thousands and thousands of advertising messages that we get bombarded with every day creates a numbing effect. And so what this really requires of us is it requires of us to be really clear in what the problem is that we solve. If we just talk about our solution, we're just amongst the other noise of all the thousands of solutions that can be applied to a particular problem, the particular problem that your solution solves and sells to. But it doesn't, but so much information is just so much information, and it becomes noise. And what cuts through and what perks people up and what gets them present to recognize is when they hear you sharing what their problem is in a way that they think about it, how they think about the problem, how they're experiencing it, how it relates to them. Kind of going back to the expectation that Google's going to deliver exactly the answer that I need with the question that I sent. It's speaking in that context, that cuts through, that resonates. That's when they go, oh, I think this person might have my solution. That's when interests get piqued in the solution that you have. The other one is infinite niches, right? That because we have global reach, it's like if whatever you're doing is not niching down to some very specific challenges or specific problems to open the gateway to the relationship, to perhaps be able to bring more of your solutions to them and expand that relationship, you're going to lose out to somebody who is, because everybody that is looking for a solution to their problem is looking for somebody that is speaking to the specific solution to the specific problem that they have, even though it's maybe part of a greater problem. And so it's creating a perception among buyers that it's like, I can find my specific challenge for my specific problem. This little thing in my computer that I'm having an issue with, I need to find someone to fix that specific problem. Who can teach me or show me or fix that? Not a computer generalist, right? But somebody who knows that. And this is where the mindset of folks are. Maybe even in your own mindset, as you search for your own solutions, you recognize that this is a change that is happening. And then lastly of the trend is that of purpose, of meaning, right? And we see this with many companies that are basically connecting their missions with different social causes, with different causes, with something with greater meaning other than I've got something to sell to you. Because ultimately, what we don't want to be perceived as somebody who's got something to sell. That's going to be an uphill battle, like a really big uphill battle. Like I was on a webinar presentation, and I was doing sales support for it, and I got put into a group. And I got grouped in with this young woman, and when we both popped into the room, she said, "Oh, you're the sales guy." And immediately I laughed, because it's like the whole perception of the way she said, "Oh, you're the sales guy" at this event was like kind of a setup on how I was going to be in that meeting, right? And it's like, and that is a perception. It's a perception that's there, and that's something that we can change with the way that we're being. And we're going to talk a little bit about that first. Like, what is it about the way that we're being that makes that difference? Because this affects, we're going to talk about techniques today, but techniques are only really effective if you have the presence to bring it through and bring it forward with the people that you're working with and talking to. So let me skip ahead. I'm really excited that next month you are having somebody talk about conversational intelligence. Like one of the foundations of my program is Judith Glacier's research and work inside of conversational intelligence, based upon the neuroscience of the brain and behavioral psychology on how people make decisions and how people respond in communication. So that is going to be super valuable for you next month. I really invite you to go and really, really take that in. And she may even talk about this a little bit. But this is important because this is giving us a context for the conversations we have when we're engaging somebody in a sales conversation. And when I say sales conversation, let me give you a context for that. I don't mean just the appointment for the meeting to make your presentation for them to make their consideration to buy. Every time we're talking to anybody, we're in a sales conversation. We're in an opportunity to let them know what we do, how we help people, how we solve, so that opportunities can open up inside and in every conversation that we have. If we just shut it off and only do it when we're on the phone at the desk, we're going to tremendously limit ourselves, and we're also going to make a lot of work for ourselves, because we're going to have to work a lot harder than if we are just carrying that way of being about ourselves and sharing with others the way that we make a difference with whatever solution that we have. So someone could say, hey, I think my uncle could use that. Well, introduce me to my uncle. I would love to help your uncle. I'd rather love to bring a solution to your uncle. I'm not somebody with something to sell. I'm somebody that's like solving something in the world. So if we look at these conversations, this is a context for us to think about it. The first level of a conversation is transactional. Transactional, this is what happens when I go to Holiday and I buy gas and the snacks that my kids won't stop bringing to the counter every time that we walk in there. And it's pretty simple. Like, I put this up, they're like, yep, you have gas on pump 4. I'm like, yep, gas on pump 4. All right, that's, $3,000. And then these chips and snacks will be another $40, hello inflation. And so I'm like, sure, no problem. So I, hand over my life savings, and then we're on our way. But it was just, the communication was merely just to make the transaction. It was just to get it done. The next level is positional. And positional conversations are what happens in our more formal sales conversations, right? Where we're actually selling something more sophisticated, more involved, a bigger investment. It isn't just like something I need, I went to a place, I'm buying it, but it's actually something that requires a conversation, it requires some consideration, and it requires some thought. Now, what's unique about positional conversations is what really worked okay in the 80s and before, which is taking that place of that authority, coming in and being the expert and providing the expertise so that they can make the decision. So we know it's positional when all the questions that I ask you are questions that are going to set up the sale. Oftentimes people are going to experience those as leading questions, like they're being led to a conclusion is a typical trait of a positional conversation, where it really becomes apparent that anything in all of my communication is to try to get you to want to buy this at the end. You're taking a position. The challenge with positional conversations now in today's world is that buyers are savvy. Buyers smell a leading question a mile away. They know if you're leading them to a conclusion. They're smart. They've done research. They've looked online. They're not just relying on the information you provide and your authority. They're already at a place. And actually, they're in a place where they've already got a whole bunch of ideas in their head, some of them good, some of them not so good, about whatever it is you're selling that can either hurt or help you because of misconceptions that they've had. Because what? There is so much information. I mean, talk about we're like drowning in the information age. There's so much information, right? And maybe 10% of it is really good information, but it's sifting through, and all of it affects their ideas. So if we're there and we're just kind of gaming to get through, we're just kind of playing tennis with the things that they're throwing at us, but we're not actually influencing their thinking. We're not actually bringing them to a level of clarity so that they can understand where the solution really aligns. Even though we can really see it, it's really clear to us if we're just relying on telling, hey, let me tell you how this is going to be, how this will work for you, how this will be awesome. They still may be nodding skeptically, like, yeah, maybe, I don't know, thinking about whatever it is that's going on in there. And if you aren't getting involved in what's going on in there, you're at an extreme disadvantage. You're in the wishy-hopey, assumey place of sales where you're assuming it's clear that they need this. Why is there not more enthusiasm in the room for what I'm showing you? What's missing here? What is missing? And the only thing that's missing is that you're not hearing what's being said up here. What's going on in there? What it is that they're thinking about? What information they're working on, that they're judging and assessing whatever it is that you have in front of them. So then we have level 3. Level 3 is a transformational conversation. And this is what she's going to talk about a lot next month in conversational intelligence, because this is what conversational intelligence is operating in this transformational conversational place. This is where you have a collaborative conversation of, instead of, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions to find out if you have a problem that I have a solution for. And once I hear it, now I'm going to tell you about my solution because, well, you got the problem. Let me tell you the solution. What we're going to do is we're going to get clear together collaboratively on what the problem is for you today. What is the challenge? What is the need? What are you most motivated by? And we're going to actually spend enough time for you, the buyer, to think it through and get clear for yourself and confirm that this is the problem you want to talk about today. This is the challenge you want to deal with today, and that you're interested in looking at a solution for. So once we confirm that, we have processed with them all that stuff, and we're not in the positional place of trying to get them to do anything. We set up an agreement to begin. It's like, well, let's take a look at this problem together and really figure out what's important together. And so you're doing it together. You're arriving at it together. And the way that you do that tactically is with really effective strategic questions. You're trying to do this and it feels like you still go to solving faster than you feel like is ready, even though you want to be more collaborative. I'd invite you to spend more time working on more open-ended questions to let them share what they're thinking and how they're thinking, and provide them more space in that conversation to be able to think through and get clear for themselves. Because in doing so, in that process of clarity, if you're there to support their clarity and they get clear with you and the light bulb goes out, guess whose credibility just went up? Guess whose value just went up? Guess whose expertise just went up? You are now the smartest person in the room. And the best part is you don't have to tell them nothing. Because we all still think we have to prove ourselves. But if you really are the expert in the room, you don't have to say boo. You ask the right questions that reveal the right challenges, the right problems, and you demonstrate your expertise with what you're asking and revealing. And then even when you present the solution, you don't have to say a whole ton because they're getting it. They're doing the work. Let them do the work. In doing that, they will get clearer and more confident, and they'll be much more confident about making a buying decision, if not that day, very soon, because you were the one that helped them get clear versus the one that came and just gave them more information to think about, more stuff to add to their brain that's already full. The other thing so transformational conversations are one where it's a collaborative conversation. You're arriving someplace together. You have agreed that you're going to come to clarity of what the challenge is together. And then together, you're going to look at the solution and look at how that solution fits. You're going to be asking them, how do you see this fitting together? How do you see the solution going in? These are the areas where this solution fits what you're talking about. How do you see it? And now they're sitting there selling you. Well, I see this is working great. I see this could be a real game changer. I see this could really save us money. Is that right? That's awesome. Well, that's what happened with company B that we did this with. And that's also what happened with company C that they had that success as well. And you just sit there sharing your social proof stories of all the results that you've gotten. And they're getting more and more convinced as they're talking about it themselves, not us. And you're doing it and arriving there together. So that by the time you do get to the close, it starts to feel like a foregone conclusion. Now, nothing is 100%. But I will say that using this method that I've been training specific sales reps to do, and if they're talking to qualified prospects, their close rate is going from 30% to 70%. Because clients are getting clear in the process, rather than going, oh, I don't know, or putting up resistance. Transformational conversations dissolves resistance. Because you're both open to the conversation. You're both open to discovering together. And when you're discovering together, they don't have to give up what they believe to adopt what you believe, which is the inherent challenge of selling something. When they have a position where you're like, oh my God, that's crazy, that's not going to help you, but it's your word or theirs. And as we know, watching how people behave around politics, people will dig in on the craziest stuff and stand by it and give up a whole lot of things. They'll give up profitability, they'll give up things just to be right. And that's human nature, right? It's being amplified now in the political world that we live in, but that's always been there. People like really defend being right about anything, whether it's true or not. But that becomes an enormous barrier for us when we're really want to help somebody and want to solve that. So moving to a transformational approach is what is necessary today to be successful without pounding your head against the pavement. This is what will bring ease to that, because you're creating an experience for them and you're differentiating yourself in a way that shifts you from like every other sales experience they have. You know, I hear a lot about get trained to do consultative sales, be the consultant, be the expert, all that. And still coming from that point of view, you're still coming in being the expert and telling them what to think, versus arriving there together and having your expertise be in your presence, not in the words you say. We're still emphasizing talking way too much. What do I say? What's the magic thing to say? Well, the magic thing to say shows up in the moment once you arrive there together. When we're communicating, 70% is our words. We put so much effort into our pitches, into what we say and saying it right and saying it the right way. And it is important to speak with clarity and brevity. That is important. I won't take that away, because that demonstrates a level of confidence and clarity around that you can deliver what you're promising, and you understand and know your area of solution well enough to really apply it to them, which is our value. That's the value all of us have, right? It's like the knowledge is available for free everywhere, no matter what your lane of knowledge is, right? But the ability to apply that knowledge to somebody's specific problem so that they don't have to think about it, that is valuable. That is what they pay for. And that has to be demonstrated in the sales conversation, in all of those, whether that's meeting the guy at Bremer Bank at the fundraiser, or if it's in a formal sales conversation. This particular graph says body language is 55% and voice quality is 38%. I don't actually believe those things based upon what I've learned about behavioral science and what I've observed in the people that I've coached and just in my own experience. I think it has much more to do with our presence and how our presence has people feel around us. Yes.
Can you speak to this when we're talking about conversations now through the screen? Because we don't necessarily, there's still body language, right, if cameras are on.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's no cameras on, we kind of more rely now on words and voice quality, right? And presence. But how do you build that without maybe seeing somebody, or you know how that's changed over the past few years?
Tell me a little bit more about the no cameras on. So are you having a Zoom meeting where their cameras off?
So yeah, so my role, I'm kind of more sales support where I'm part of the implementation of the actual sale, but no one ever has their cameras on. And so really we rely on just how people sound and familiarity of like who you are, right? if you've had conversations with me before. But a lot of times being in the implementation phase, I'm introduced after the sale has been preliminary, like has gone through preliminary.
So they're like, we're a
stages.
yes, let's get the details.
Yeah.
Like you're at the scoping phase.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, so here's the scope and here's the, so you're gonna.
Yeah, and I'm pulled in kind of as the SME, right? But I have no relationship with these people. I'm new. How do I?
So my first question is, do you ask them to turn their cameras on?
I don't. Because I guess the precedent has been set by my prior sales team. I don't think they've ever had cameras on.
Okay, well, I would invite you to ask, hey, could we have cameras on so we can see each other? I really like to see who I'm talking to.
Sure.
You know, like for connection, for rapport, like I want to see who I'm talking to. Like, it's not TV, folks.
Yeah.
This is a real thing. I'm live, I'm here to, you know, we're here to have a conversation,
Yeah.
you know, kind of thing. And in the absence of that, you may not get that. Like, nope, right? So what is the risk of talking into the darkness?
Everything. I mean, the risk.
Yeah.
I mean, losing. I mean, I guess I don't know if my role would necessarily lose the sale, but I don't feel like I build good trust. I don't really know that I'm showing my value before I show my value.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, okay, so I might challenge some of those ideas because what I'm hearing there is because you can't see them, you're having doubt about yourself because you don't have information.
I feel like maybe I'm having to work a little bit harder.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, because you're kind of feel like you're grasping a little bit,
Yeah.
right? Grasping, how many folks in here find grasping really helpful in sales conversations? Never. Right? Grasping is like kind of a weakness that gets smelled in the room, right? It really works, it works against you, right? So first off, always invite like, hey, let's all turn our cameras on so we can see each other, it's great. And if it's like, no, we don't do that, right? Because they could be watering their plants while you're talking, going, right? The other thing is to engage them with lots of questions. And the questions, you may say, well, I'm presenting material, I'm presenting what we're doing, what are my questions going to be? But the questions can be, you can give a set of like, we're gonna do this and this and this. What would that be like for you?
Sure.
How do you see that working for you? How do you see you're engaged so you know you're hearing them engage because they're repeating back to you? And that's being transformational. That's being collaborative in it. And also setting an expectation at the very beginning. It's like, all right, so we're going to go through this and we do it really collaboratively. And so I want to be getting clear as we go. So I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions, right? So that they're prepared for, you're going to ask me questions, right? And when they're prepared for it, then you don't have to overcome like stony silence. If they're like, why is she asking me a question? They never ask questions. What's going on here, right? And do it that way because it's like, we've been doing phone sales like way longer with no visuals than we ever have with Zoom.
Right.
And phone sales, you do it with the presence of your listening is what has you feel. And we all know, like, if you're on the phone with somebody and they get distracted, you're like, hey, where'd you go? And you didn't see anything, but you felt their focus shift away from you. You feel it. Everybody does, right? Are you listening to me? I'm talking to my brother. Like, what are you doing? Are you playing with the dog again? Will you talk to me? Right? Oh, so sorry. Yeah, I'm here. So those would be ways that I would address that and deal with that. So how we communicate. This is the way and the order that I believe we actually communicate with people. First is with our presence. And our presence most often is expressed in the way that we listen to other people. When, I don't know if you've experienced this before, but when you're with somebody that really hears you and really hears what you've experienced, like really gets it in terms of like it's received and you feel it's received, your experience of that person and of that communication is really, really different. Yeah, Bill.
I remember hearing a story of someone who knew Sigmund Freud. And they said, he listened to you every part of his being. I've never been listened to like that. And of course, his whole practice was based on getting you to reveal unconscious things. But I always thought that was interesting to really put every part of your being into listening, not into thinking of your response.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I love about what you said is his entire business was getting people to reveal what was there. And what are we doing when we're in our sales conversations? We need them to reveal what is really going on for them so that we can connect the dots in a real way. And it's in our listening that happens, because when we feel heard, anytime, just notice, if you like really focus and listen hard, what will people will naturally do, even when I do exercises around this, people share more. They want to share more. They feel really good. Oxytocin starts pumping through their brain and they're feeling great about themselves and they're being heard. And not only that, but things that are frustrating or angry, or even things that didn't work out well with your company before or whatever, they express it, you get it, they can let it go. There's all kinds of magic that happens in the listening. When it's putting effort and emphasis on your listening and the presence that you have in the room with the people that you're talking to, whether you're meeting them on the street or whether you're in that formal sales conversation. The other one is unconscious behavior. This is the stuff that we just do when we're in front of somebody and we're unconscious of it. We're not aware of it. And the mistake that we make is we don't create intention to actually direct our body. We just let our body do whatever it's going to do. And here's the real truth and reality is that we think that our inner thoughts are inner. They are not. We broadcast everything, all of our feelings about everything all the time. The only thing we have going for us is that the other person is thinking more about themselves than they are watching you. That's how they don't actually see all of your reactions to whatever that they're saying and they're doing, because they're stuck in their own world. But once you start bringing your whole presence and your whole listening and listening with every part of your being, like Bill suggested, like Sigmund Freud, then you notice that they reveal so much more. You perceive so much more. You learn so much more to ask them about, to create clarity for them. Because a lot of the folks that we talk about aren't really even sure what they do think about things. And the conversation with you is the opportunity to do that. And if you're the one that helps them get clear, you're likely going to be the expert that they're really going to want to work with, that they can trust, because you're speaking into what their interests are, not trying to convince them that you've got a thing that they need and that they should see that.
It sort of relates to what you're talking about. If you can't see someone, you really can't recognize the second point.
Right. But you can feel if their focus has gone away from you. And I bet you feel that you're losing their focus when you're like, oh, are you still there? Right? And feeling that kind of grasping, right? Because you feel that drift kind of thing. And trust that feeling. That's really valuable information. It's not like, oh, I don't know why this is. No, that's a real natural part of communication that is unseen. And then the last thing is language. It's the word we use. Because here's the thing, is that if you have presence and you have unconscious behavior that generates trust and confidence in the person that you're talking to, their lens of what you say is through their feelings. And if they're feeling really good about you, they're going to feel really good about everything you say about whatever you're talking about. You don't have to sound slick. You don't have to have the perfect pitch. If they're feeling good about you and you've set that up and established that with your presence, your credibility is going to go up. Your value is going to go up. All of that is going to go up. So then the language of saying it just right to get something across really becomes the last thing. And that is what has that. This is the flip. This is the change. This is the going beyond the consultative sales that has been like the buzzword since the 80s. And still people are like, oh, well, why did I take a consultative approach? Which is, oftentimes just another way to say, I come in and talk a lot and be the expert in the room. Tell them, and hopefully they'll see how smart I am and how good I am and how good we are and how great we are. And then they'll want to work with us. But it doesn't actually do anything to help that person make a more confident decision, unless they already decided they wanted to buy from you when you walked in. And those are the best, because we can't hardly screw those up. So before I go into the section where we're going to go through the template is fairly simple. Do you have any questions about what I shared? Bill?
You go into some more detail from your experience of some of the unconscious behaviors that damage us in this kind of a meeting situation. What are some of the things you've seen people do that get in their way?
Well, I'll reveal one of my bad ones, and you've probably seen me do it during this presentation, is touching my face. I've touched my nose probably 3 times like that or whatever. Like face touching is a thing that works against us in our own favor. But it's not about here. What it's not about is this. Like, you know, in Toastmasters, where they're like, okay, you want to get rid of all the ums and you want to get rid of all the ahs, and you don't want to do those things. And so then when people go to work on that, they're like, okay, I can't say or ah, and they're listening to themselves talk, and they're like, oh, I said again, right. And what they're doing when they're
Then they say,
Right. And what they're doing is they're leaving the audience and they're having a conversation with themselves about what's going on. And if you really don't want to say or ah, be really present with who you're talking to. Because if I'm really present with you, I can tune into your listening and pace what I'm sharing for you. And I'm not going to say, where am I at here, right? That's me thinking in my head and trying to figure that out, rather being really tuned in with you over there. And the same thing applies. So the way that we direct unconscious behavior is you set an intention for your behavior when you go in. You declare, I have a whole worksheet for all of my clients that they do before they go into every meeting, where they declare like how they're going to be. I'm going to be confident. I'm going to be calm. I'm going to be at ease. And making these declarations actually instructs your body on what to do, and you don't think about it. Because our bodies do millions of processes that we never think about. They just do, and we go living. And one of the easy ways to direct that is by making a declaration of how you want it to be and then forgetting about it. And then your body does it. It just takes over. It just does what it's going to do. And the more that you practice that, the less you even have to remember to make the intention, because your body then starts to learn a pattern like, oh, it's sales meeting time. This is what we do when we're at sales meeting time. I almost touched my face again. So that's what I would say about unconscious behavior, because it's like we often get too wrapped up in the, oh, how do I not do that, right? When it's really as simple as give your body some instructions. Okay, so let me get into this. So when we are meeting somebody in this way, this is going to get down to our tactical part, okay? So the first thing is we want to take a problem focus. Move away from talking about our solution and all the stuff our solution does, and keep the focus on what are your challenges? What are you dealing with? Like, Tom, how do when you're coaching your sales reps, like, what are they complaining about when they're out in the field? What's a big challenge for them? What's something that they can't seem to get over, right? I'm focused on the problem rather than like, hey, when I work with clients and we use conversational intelligence. Have you read about that, Tom? I mean, it's really good stuff. I mean, it's like cutting edge science, you know what I mean? And Tom's like, well, that's all interesting and stuff, but it's like, I got to coach these guys and they got to get results, right? Thanks for letting me use you as an example. But it's like taking the problem focus. So you want to be prepared with your questions everywhere you go, open-ended questions that reveal the problem that they may be having. And this can happen in a casual conversation. It can be this casual because it's an open-ended, broad question, right? And then this, and as they share, then you can ask them more questions about what it is that they're dealing with. And you're going deeper into their perception of it, into their sharing, and you're actually helping them get clear, and you're navigating that. If you imagine it like your open-ended question turns the light on in a big room, and they describe a lot of different things in the room, and you're like, ooh, that over there, that's something that's interesting to me. That's something I could help you with. You think to yourself, tell me more about that. Tell me more about that problem. Oh, yeah, sure. And then they go on.
That's the key spot. When they see that little light, are you gonna ask another question? Or are you gonna try and tell them?
Are you gonna start telling them like, there's the problem? Yes.
I just saw something and I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna try and fill that need even though I don't really understand it.
Yes.
And that's a moment where you make the decision whether you're gonna be problem focused or whether you're gonna try to be the expert.
Exactly. Exactly. Really good catch, Bill. Because if you make a promise to yourself to always ask 3 more questions deep before you get into any solution at all, them thinking more clearly about their problem is only going to help you. You've got all the world. The deeper you get into the relevance of what they're thinking, the better position you're always going to be in your essays. And that is what will entice them. That is what will catch their interest. They'll be like, you must know something. And then making that transition to like, hey, would you like to have a meeting to explore this deeper? Now you have a reason to meet and explore something deeper. So you have an offer that is not just like, hey, well, we should talk about my sales program. Don't need a sales program. Thanks. Nice to meet you. We're doing fine. Okay, well, call me if you do. All right, I'll call you never. All right, great. Right? It's like, oh gosh, I hope they call. So let's look at this. First, I want to take you through the spectrum of consideration. This is important because you need to be aware of where people are at when you enter into the conversation. And this is where you're going to design your questions around this. This is why having that broad, open-ended question, like, hey, how's your sales team performing this year? I might ask. Right? Oh, we're doing great. Great. What's great? What's really working? Super. And that can lead me into like, what's the challenge areas and that sort of thing, right? So as we look at this spectrum here, we have here people who are at a place where they're completely unaware of they're having a problem, but they're completely unaware they have a problem. They just got pain. So once you in your questioning start to reveal, oh my gosh, I do have a problem here. That's what this pain is. That's something I could do about. If you go, hey, let's have a sales meeting, bam, right over there, they might be like, whoa, slow down. That's way too fast for me. We want to move with them collaboratively. May or may not. It's an intuitive call, right? But it's like you're just creating awareness. Maybe this is the point at which to say, hey, let me share some information with you, and then we can just talk about it. Where it's like more informational, and you start nurturing that information. The other level of this of consideration of awareness is they have ideas of the problem causing symptoms. There's something that's creating this pain, and they're starting to wonder and get curious about that. And so then at this stage, they're starting to emotionally prepare themselves to look for a solution for it. And so at this stage of the conversation, you would be uncovering this and perhaps inviting them to, again, something more informational, or maybe if they're willing to look at actually seriously considering solutions, at this stage where they're at, moving them along to their matching their comfort level. And then we have the stage where they know they have symptoms, they're feeling it, and they're researching and looking for possibilities. This is where they're getting ready to shop. And so this is a really timely place to find someone, engage someone, because then you can you're closer to this place where the sales meeting can happen to move them into that. And then this is essentially where you're one of the options. They know that they've pretty got a good idea what the problem is. You're clearly one of the options, and they're really ready to consider buying that and going right into into that stage. So this is the easiest space to just move right to that sales meeting. This may be a resource area or a resource conversation. Hey, happy to be a resource for you. Happy to give you some additional information to help clarify that for you. Hey, let's set up another conversation and talk through what you read, what you see. But there's always a conversation that is set up, always a conversation that's going to happen. But it's important to tune in to where they're at when you're making your ask. So, all right, so all this stuff is a part of Adaptive Conversations for Conscious Selling, which is a system that I developed to really create the communication transformation so that you can do this with ease, take it out of the conceptual part and actually have it a lived experience. That's all I'll say about that. Here is the conversational template. First, you always invite them to share first. This is where you have your questions ready, your open-ended question ready for them to start sharing and being open and share more and more about it. If you are of the mind that it's like, well, I'm in a networking event, they're not going to talk about problems with their sales team in a networking event. Baloney. People love to talk about their pain. They do. It's just you need to prime them a little bit to get them to trust you and relax enough, and out it will come. It will plop right out for you. But it's having the patience to let them talk about it. That's where you ask follow-up questions about something you can help with to identify and go deep. Promise yourself, I will ask 3 questions deep before ever bringing up a solution, and a solution being an invitation to meet with you, to look at solving that or how you could help with solving that. The other thing to remember is when you're out, if it's not an appointment set with you or you're prospecting or you're talking, what you're always selling is a meeting. You're never selling your thing. You're always selling a meeting. You're enticing them that it's worth their time. The first sale you make is the time they give you to consider something. That's always the first sale. And I emphasize this because so many of us botch up great opportunities because we want to get right in there. Oh, this is my shot. Let me tell you about this stuff now. You know, as if we're going to actually get it as the garage door closes. Yes, yeah, but whoa, look at this, right? And we do it again and again, even though it doesn't work. So the first sale is the meeting. It's the time that they give you, their attention. That is the very first sale. And that is to be enticed with. And when you ask your follow-up questions about something that you've discovered, then you ask a feeling or impact question because it's the feelings that motivate them. So here's an example. First question to ask. So what are you excited about? What's really going well for you? What are you focusing on right now? You want to find out what is going on and is most prevalent in there. What is concern is most prevalent to them right now and going on in their world. And you may ask, well, why would I want to know what's exciting about? I want to know what keeps you up at night. And what keeps you up at night is the lazy salesperson's way of alienating somebody. Because the moment anybody hears that, they're like, you're going to sell me something, I'm out of the door, right? Resistance shows up. And now you've got a hill to climb over. You don't need that. When you ask somebody about something positive, their energy goes up. They feel good about sharing it. And when they're at that higher state and they start to trust you a little bit more, then they feel more confident in themselves to actually share things that may not be working so good, where you actually get into the areas that you could solve or fulfill a need for them. So then you ask a follow-up question related to what you solve the best. So like I might ask, so how are sales going this year? How easy is it to fill your program or practice if it's somebody that has a program or a practice that they have, if I'm talking to a consultant? You know, what do you like about working for yourself? Things that are going to start then revealing some of the challenges that they have. And I go deep enough until I can visibly see some agitation over something that they need solving, or if they're willing to elaborate on their frustration. And I'll ask them to elaborate. Wow, that sounds frustrating. Tell me more. Oh man, I want them to go into it. Because here's the truth. If they're not feeling it, they ain't buying it. That is brain science 101 now. All decisions are made by feelings and emotions. If they're not feeling it, they're not buying. If we bypass the feelings, then we're just gonna really get the ones of the people that were already gonna buy from us in the first place. And we're not likely gonna be able to sway or move people, and we're certainly not gonna make the sale in that meeting. It's gonna take a lot longer and have a lot more effort. And we want this ease. We want to do a sale with ease, right? We're like, 5 closures this week. I'm gonna take Friday off. You know, life is good. This is what we really want. And then an impact question. And these are the ones that I really want you to write down. These are the takeaways. You can just take these off and just use these, right? When they describe something to you, an experience they have or a challenge they have, say, wow, what's that like for you? And asking them what's that like for them opens up the floodgate of their feelings about it. All right? Another way to ask is directly like, wow, how does that feel when that happens? Right? Which is getting personal. And every person that we sell to, whether they're the CEO of a big company or they're an owner operator of their own deal, their decision to buy is a crossroads of personal and professional every time. And we have to be mindful and address both of those. And getting into the feelings brings that out because the feeling is where the motivation lies. And this is the elaboration method that I flashed past here. This is courtesy of John Hoffield, who's our local with The Science of Selling. Awesome book. He spoke at PSA a number of years ago, and it was an amazing presentation and a really eye-opening, really valuable eye-opening book. Another foundational research text that I've used for my program. So we get into the feelings. So we ask that question, that open-ended question. We identify, there's something that we can help with. This is something we can do. We ask a follow-up question about it. Tell me more about that. What's happening in there? What's that like? And then we ask the feeling questions to be able to their excitement or their frustration or whatever that is about it, to get the feelings out so that they get present to the challenge that it's happening. Because if we only operate in the intellectual space, then we're going to be playing tennis with like all kinds of reasons. We want to get in the heart space, and the heart space is in that of the feelings. So here's the other thing you want to write down. This is your transition. Hey, you know what? I've gotten really great results with helping people over the closing part and the investment part of the conversations. One of my clients has even taken their sales closings from 20% to 70% consistently. Would you like to get together and talk more about your sales conversations? And that's the invitation. That's the invitation to meet. And this is the template. I'll just wait a moment for everyone to get that written down. And I can share this deck too.
I can get you the emails and if you want to just share that slide.
Yeah, great.
A little complex.
I don't need the whole deck. Yeah. I'll share the slide of the templates.
Thank you.
We'll do that. So I've gotten great results helping sales pros become adaptive and agile in their sales conversations so they can prosper with ease. One of my clients gets people so excited in her conversations, she's having to figure out how to accommodate more participants. Would you like to get together and talk about your sales conversations? What's key in here is there's a piece of social proof that says, I've gotten this result with somebody before. We have to back up our claims with results that we've gotten now more than ever. More than ever. You're at a huge disadvantage if you're leaving it out and you're not training yourself to always be talking about the results that you're producing for other clients and that you're getting. That is what persuades people, not our experience and our brand and our awards. Those are all really abstract. But when I hear, those companies are just like me. They have problems like me. I believe now that you likely can help me. So that's that. What do we have? 2 minutes left. I could take a couple of questions.
First of all, is there anybody that's uncomfortable with me sharing their email with Jason to get those slides?
Okay. All right, well, with the minutes we have left, does anybody have any questions or comments? All right, well, that's great. Well, thank you so much for your listening. I appreciate your audience and attentive listening, and it was really good to be here.
Oh, that's stunned silence.
Yes.
Congratulations. Thank you so much. Stay up for a second. Got a couple things for you.
Sure.
First of all, here's a Starbucks gift card.
Oh, awesome.
So you
Coffee
can
on the
go
way
and
home.
You can have conversations with people.
I can.
That's right. that's
Absolutely.
right. And then also you'll be a member of PSA, a gold member for a year.
Awesome.
So hopefully you'll be able to come back and join
Yeah.
us and be in the audience.
Well, I definitely want to hear the conversational intelligence one next.
Well, great.
I'm a fan.
Love to have you back.
Thank you,
All
Bill.
right. Thanks, Jason. Thank you so much. Well, let me just close with a story. I want to remind you, October 6th is our next speaker. It's on conversational intelligence. Jason says you got to be here, so please be here. I'll just close with a story. It is college football season. So a couple of years ago, Nebraska had this really, really good player, Bubba. And Bubba was failing in every class. And they just couldn't find a way to keep him eligible. And they finally said, look, they got all the professors together and they said, look, we're going to ask Bubba one question in front of the stadium full of people. And if he can answer that question, he can stay on, on the team. And so they got all of the Nebraska student body all together in one stadium. They put Bubba on the stage in the middle of it. And the math professor got up and they said, Bubba, what's 7 plus 9? And you could see Bubba thinking, and Bubba was straining, and Bubba was putting everything together. 7 plus 9. You can see him, lips were moving, and he finally goes, 16. And the entire student body of Nebraska Big Red Cornhuskers stood up as one and said, give Bubba another chance. So go out and give yourself another chance by using Jason's material, and have a great week.